Hi, I would like to promise right now, up front, that there is something in this video for you. For the people who saw this title and are going down to the dislike, it's not that kind of video. I promise I will tell you the best way to support Joe Biden for your best interest and the interests of others. And while you watch this video, I hope you listen and I hope you learn about some other people's perspectives on the situation. There are lots of reasons to pick a candidate. The reasons I'm going to focus on are policy, posture, and loyalty. Those are only words for categorization. I do not believe any of those words are reduced to an impression that you may have of them. I'm going to tell you up front, the best way to support a candidate is to take a policy that means something to you and tell people that. Be honest, be direct. For example, Joe Biden supports a living wage. If we installed a living wage in America that started at $15 an hour, and I think it's 28 cents, my life would be remarkably improved. I would be more financially secure. I would have more free time and less time worrying about where my money came from. And a lot of other people would too. Increasing the minimum wage to that amount would also make it so that I can change jobs. Several people are locked into a job. They get a couple raises once they get some experience, once they're comfortable there. But if every job increases their minimum wage to $15 an hour without increasing a proportionate amount of raises that the person has gotten over the years, then they are free to go elsewhere for a job, you know, assuming that job doesn't have a hold of their health care. And Joe Biden has said he supported this. Hillary Clinton said she supported this. If either of them had instilled this law, had instilled this in America, my life would be better today. And I would be more secure today, along with thousands of other workers that are just like me. Those workers that we've recently learned are essential to our economy and our day of life. Is this dry enough? I feel dry. It's very dry, me trying to... Let's break it down, y'all. People generally choose a president off the 3 reasons I gave you. I am a policy person. I very much so have things I want to see, have a future I want to make, and I want to get there. And part of that future is workers having more power, and part of having power in capitalism is having more capital, having more money. The more money you have, the more power you have. So I want workers to have more money. Not only to have more power because it benefits me that people in my position, in my class, are able to better the world and have power to say, donate to a politician they like, but also so we can just make things better. A lot of the perceived laziness of the world is not disconnected to the amount of power, time, and energy a person has. Now, I'm still chillin' in Cedar Rapids. I live in Iowa, the first state to vote for president. It's a state where it's very easy to be engaged, and it's also very easy to see presidential candidate. I saw Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg at both of them, but more importantly than that, I have seen the people, the voters that went to each of the, I think it was 9 major candidates for the Democratic ticket. I've heard their reasons, their pleas for someone to come and vote for their candidate and show their support in our actual literal caucuses. Yang, Warren, and Sanders all had very strong messages that circled around very strong policies. Yang had his UBI. Warren was for Medicare for all, but also reforming prisons. Her platform is that she had a lot of platforms. She had a lot of reasons for people that are analytical about this kind of thing to jump on. But that wasn't all her supporters. A lot of her supporters were, say, similar to Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar supporters. The things that stood out most for those supporters is they thought that they were positioned well. They were posed well. They were moderate. One person gushed about how moderate Amy Klobuchar was and how level-headed and how she could definitely talk to anyone and make friends and get things done in politics. There wasn't a lot of words about what those things were, but that there were things done. And this boils down to a similar aspect, or crossovers with an aspect, of loyalty, which is what I would say about the classic Joe Biden supporters were about. Loyalty to the Democratic Party. Joe Biden has put in time with the Democratic Party. He's been vice president, he's supported these values, he was for gay rights a little bit before everyone else, as a higher up DNC kind of person. Now, Bernie Sanders was neutral and for gay and trans rights before everyone else, but you're with the party, you're not with the loyal. This is very general, but it does stretch across the aisle too. For example, libertarians, though we mostly see them as like vampires, but they also want sweet deals, stipends, kickbacks that go to major industries to stop, as well as the social safety net disabled. But still, that's an example of their policies put into motion. Donald Trump himself strikes up a lot of poise. Donald Trump himself strikes up a lot of pose and loyalty. Though he poses to be more loyal than he may actually be, Republicans don't see it that way, because Republicans see where the party is leaning, and that Donald Trump is along with that, and the party is with Donald Trump every step of the way. And people that are interested in pose, you can also say that's kind of friendliness, like, oh, I could have a beer with that person. They'd really get along. They look presidential. They remind me of what a president looks like. And this does cross into identity and minoritized people. There were a lot of people that didn't think that Obama looked like a president. There was also a lot of people that thought Hillary Clinton didn't look like a president because she was a woman. There is a reason why the majority of our politicians are very tall, because people think tall people have authority. Be sure right here, it is not full out a bad thing. A lot of the signifiers that we use in looking for someone in a pose kind of way is friendliness, that the person can get along with one another. That's a good leader if they're able to get along and get people to do what they want to do. And take it from me, as a person who's 5'3", I feel the unfairness of these words. I've worked in a retail store where my only job is to know the selling points of a computer. And I, as a 5'3" person, have flat out, plainly, simply explained to a person why a computer is good. You should have this one. And they ask to see someone else. So I called the new guy who's worked here a week, but is 6 foot something tall. I don't know. It gets kind of hard to tell at a certain point. Like, if you're like 4 inches taller than me, I don't care anymore. If you're 6 feet taller than me, or if you're 4 inches taller than me, see, it's the same. I don't give a shit. So I call over, let's call him Tolly McMumbles. And Tolly McMumbles has a bad posture. He's scratching his leg with his foot. He's saying, oh, I don't know, maybe. And these customers are eating this shit up. These customers are making eye contact with his eyes that are going everywhere. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. The things he say are actually wrong. And the customer believes him more because he's tall. I'm sure I've told this before. I probably didn't need that aside. Now, all of these things are tied into ideology. Not just the policies. All of them. All of them. All of them. And also, every candidate will try to make those arguments and apply to every one of those points to get as many voters as possible. And it's hard to convince people to do anything when each of those 3 methods are tied to a different ideology. A right hand and a left hand, you could say. Where the right's ideas of poise, I'm definitely not using the right word. To make it a shorthand, the right's ideology is much more individualistic, and the left's ideology has a much better idea of how systems affect people. A lot of successful people, a lot of people on the right will downplay systematic advantages or cash advantages that they had in order to see themselves as fitting a narrative of an individual conquering and a self-made person. Not everyone on the right or the left has a completely separate ideology. there's plenty of people on the left who probably have roots in an ideology of individualism. In fact, I know there are, because a lot of liberal message movies like Crash, instead of focusing on systematic oppressions, focus on flawed individuals as the cause of systematic problems such as racism. And lots of liberals will watch and clap and support that kind of movie. There's also like more than two ideologies. I was simplifying it because the act of arguing, the act of calling from one person to another, the act of trying to get people that like Donald Trump, people that voted for him, people that like how Donald Trump postures, will not necessarily be drawn over to other ones. And certainly you are not going to convince anyone yourself to go along with a political view or a plan unless you appeal to their ideology or dismantle it in some way. Because it is dangerous to go along with a different ideology than yours, because ideologies are not just simple, but ideologies have a purpose in themselves. And it is hard to fight off the ideology of a platform. For example, I am talking to you on YouTube. I can seem like the kind of guy where we both can share a couple of beers and shoot the shit and then talk about important things. But I'm the only one talking. And there are things that benefit me that do not necessarily benefit or hinder you. For example, I want you to leave a comment, any comment, down below, and hit the like and subscribe, because I benefit from each of those things. And it would make sense for me to do the kind of things that make people do that. But because of my ideology, the things that I believe in, I don't do a lot of the best practices that are made for YouTube, that get people involved, that feed off of a parasocial relationship between the audience and the YouTube creator, and that hurts me because I'm going against the ideology of the medium, of the platform of YouTube. Blue no matter who is a bad way to convince people to vote for your candidate because you don't understand the people. It has nothing to do with the people. It has nothing to do with the candidate. It's nothing personal at all. It is a tacit threat. And that threat is that we are going to blame the voters if this person does not win. The threat is that the DNC will blame voters if they lose. And they've set themselves up to lose with this argument. You cannot support Joe Biden by saying vote blue no matter who, because it has nothing to do with Joe Biden. It has nothing to do with the person you're talking to, and it has nothing to do with you. And it's not your fault. I do not blame you. The DNC chose this. A lot of voters voted for Joe Biden in a state that cares a lot about loyalty. And Joe Biden is the loyalty candidate. What most Democrats care about is getting Trump out so that their party can win. What other Democrats also care about, there is an interlap with this, is that they want a president that's presidential, that's better than Trump, that isn't rude and mean. And once Biden got a win in a loyalty state, despite losing the first 3 states, and other people having a far better hold, the DNC that was supposed to be impartial said, we are for this loyalty candidate. And Barack Obama and DNC leaders pressured every other campaign to drop out and endorse Biden, including Pete Buttigieg, who was doing a lot better than Joe Biden in the polls, and including Bernie Sanders, who swept the first 3 states, and people thought would just go all the way, and would have if the DNC didn't do this one drastic thing and pile on behind their candidate. It's not great, but it's not bad that it happened this way. That is to say, you can't blame the voters for this. It was a DNC choice. The Democratic National Committee chose Joe Biden. The Democratic National Committee pressured everyone that was running to drop out before the biggest Super Tuesday and embrace them in a time where it would be in the news. And so people heard from the news, from the possible candidates, from each other, all the buzz about Joe Biden. And it was clear that he's the man that the DNC chose. It's the man that the Democrats all want. They created the image of success in Joe Biden. And so people who mostly voted off impulse, and impulse votes goes off of not policies, not analysis, not watching all the candidates for weeks and watching debates, but loyalty and pose. And the DNC posed Joe Biden in such a way that he is their candidate. His policies do not matter. There's a lot of videos where people are trying to figure out why you would vote for Joe Biden. And people didn't have a good policy answer. They had loyalty answers. They had position answers. They didn't have policy answers. Which, to be mean, the people said are not answers. That those supporters of Joe Biden had no reason to. Because they're policy people. You know, policy people can be a little hard on everyone else. Vote blue no matter who has an ideology behind it. Vote blue no matter who shut the fuck up when Bernie was in the lead. Because Bernie has a different ideology than vote blue no matter who, and a different ideology than the Democrats at large. Voting is not an individual choice. Voting has systematic factors on it, and we need to understand that. And if that clashes with your ideas, that's because I've clashed with an ideology that's inside of you, despite what side of the political aisle you think you are on. This can still be fine. As Bob Chapman, Movie Bob, put it online, Joe Biden is a pudding brain. He'll sign whatever you put in front of him, so just get behind him, lefties. Those are the exact words of Movie Bob on Twitter. At Movie Bob. Don't at me. And he didn't hear that from Trump. He heard that from Julian Castro, another Democratic candidate, who said it on the debate stage, which he watched and I watched because we like to hurt ourselves. So it will not hurt Biden, a loyalty position candidate, to take on policies that are good. And certainly that is what the Sanders campaign wants to do. If your primary still is to come up, 1, see about absentee ballots, get on that. And 2, vote for Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders not only wants to talk to Joe Biden about what to do for policies, but Bernie Sanders wants to be more prominent in the Democratic Party in order to shape their goals and policies, because Bernie Sanders appeals to people who are not normally in politics. And this isn't just people that are in the middle. These are people that are to the far off fringe left. Boots Riley is a communist. He made the movie Sorry to Bother You. He's in the communist band The Coup, with songs like Guillotine, You Are Not a Revolution, and many more. One of his album covers, being strongly anti-capitalist, was of him being in front of the World Trade Center on fire. And before the actual 9/11 happened, a lot of music critics said it was the best cover of all time. Boots Riley has never voted because his ideology has nowhere near the normal politics of America. But Bernie Sanders' policies, short, sweet, and very clear in ideology, that we need to help the people. And the best way to help all America is with a systematic solution. Systematic solutions to systematic problems. Because in the end of the day, that's what everyone really wants. Everyone, maybe. I don't know. There are some nightmare-brained people that probably do just full-on hate the poor. But a lot of conservatives, as I've said in my Mr. Rogers video, think the best way to help the poor is to not help them and leave them completely alone and isolated, so that then they can become Ubermensch supermen and decide their own destiny, because helping people is what makes people weak. That's why everyone with a personal trainer is weaker. I don't know. I don't have a good analogy for you people. I had made a video for it. Go there. But back to you mainstream, if you consider yourself a liberal person, especially if you've posted some amount of vote blue no matter who. You are not helping your candidate. You are not helping blue. Look up Joe Biden's policies. Here's a screenshot that I stole from an old person. Of these policies, the simplest one is 15-hour minimum wage, which he adopted from Bernie. You could say he adopted it from Hillary, but Hillary adopted it from Bernie. Bernie is quite the guy. And I know a lot of liberals have a pent-up rage against Bernie, but I would like you to remember where that rage came from. Does it come from, say, an individualistic ideology that you deserve what you have and that people need to work to get where you are? Does it come from, say, the last round of Vote Blue No Matter Who, where, let me remind you, Bernie voted blue. Bernie endorsed the major candidate, as he's done this time. And Bernie tried to help them as much as possible with the policies that would reach out to the fringe and to the Republicans. Because even a Republican can see how they would be better off with more money. Bernie Sanders' plans were simple. Joe Biden's plans are mouths full. Now, a simple or complex policy are not necessarily bad in and of themselves, but simple or easy to understand is preferable. So first off, everyone deserves to understand politics, how our country works. It's hard to explain insurance companies and our current healthcare system because there's so many giant moving parts. And part of them are complicated on purpose to keep people out, to gatekeep people from understanding how our government works. A lot of finance, a lot of financial theory depends on specific jargon to make it harder for people to understand so that it can seem like experts, one, know what they're doing, and two, so that normal people stay away. The 2008 financial crisis was a big, complicated mess. There was a whole movie dedicated to uncovering the several parts of the big moving part that were fraudulent. But since the parts were so big and moving and so many people still don't understand the 2008 financial crisis, the government, conservatives, economists were able to blame teachers and minorities for buying too many houses and blaming an entire crisis on them, instead of putting the bankers that were guilty of fraud in prison. The Big Short is a fantastic movie. Okay? And one of the major banks in the world that was not hurt by the financial crisis was a bank that insisted on looking at financial documents about investing in housing. And they could not understand the investment. They didn't understand what it was, so they didn't invest. And when it turns out that the people not understanding what's going on was just a lot of fraud happening and people lying about there being good money where there wasn't, they were not hurt when all that fraud came out. There is accountability, universal help, and an air of welcoming and understanding when a program is simple, is simplistic. Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan would expand Medicare to get rid of deductibles, it would get rid of premiums, it would make Medicare cover vision and dental, and in 4 years it would cover every American. Simple, elegant. How do we pay for our medical care? The government does. How do we get medical care? You show up at a medical facility. Do you need to call an insurance company? No. Do you need to worry about it? No. Do you need to have insurance through your job in order to get health care? No. And that would be very helpful, say, if there's a pandemic where a lot of people get fired and laid off from their jobs and no longer have health care to treat themselves when they're sick, so that then they don't have to go into debt to deal with their health problems. The other problem with there being a lot of complications in Joe Biden's policies is that there's a lot of means testing. And means testing is crappy. And there's a lot of ideology behind both of these things. But we're gonna quickly crash through means testing. So the argument for means testing is that people of means, rich people, shouldn't pay the same amount as poor people. They should be paid more. We shouldn't be paying for billionaires' colleges because they're billionaires. They can pay for themselves. But that is not good. Because of the fact that billionaires can pay for schools, there's better, richer schools that do not help poor people. Every major Ivy League college is Ivy, partially because it's full of white people, partially because partially because that's a symbol of wealth. Rich people go to Harvard, go to Cambridge. These are big famous names attended by big famous rich important people. And poor people cannot go there. Of course, poor people can go there if they're extraordinary, or if you're a rich, mediocre piece of shit, you can go there. And even then, Mark Zuckerberg is not a good person. Good people don't go to good healthcare for all. Good. Healthcare for all who want it. What does that mean, you psychopath? Everyone wants to be healthy. You're not going to win over a lot of people with that. It's not a win people over kind of stance. So everyone can support Joe Biden by telling him, his campaign staffers, to get better policies. Everyone who's not voted in a primary yet can help Joe Biden by voting for Bernie Sanders, who will improve the policies and give him winning policies that actually apply to people, that make people's lives better. No one can support Joe Biden by saying vote blue no matter who, because it doesn't work. It doesn't apply to any ideology. It doesn't apply to any advantage. It doesn't apply to any need. Vote blue no matter who is an excuse for when the DNC loses. The DNC has made a calculation that they can survive fine being the minority party. They like not being in charge. They like saying Trump bad, and we'd be so much better in charge. But when it comes to making changes that would make it so that a Donald Trump doesn't happen again, because people are not hurting, people are not dying, people are not desperately angry at whatever their demigod tells them is making their lives worse, then there is not authoritarians. There is not a call for a strong man. There is not desperation in the people. And the way to make people's lives better is to give everyone health care. Make college available for everyone for free. Forgive loan debt. To give people money to live. To make sure the common worker gets more and more power. Because people run to an authoritarian strongman because they feel weak, because they don't have money, because they don't have advantages. And they lash out against whoever the complicated system tells them is making things worse. You can't scold people into voting for your candidate. You can scold them into hating you. You can scold them into blocking you. You can scold them into arguing with you. But you can't make them vote by scolding them. You need to appeal to them. You can bully powerful figures into acquiescing. You can convince Joe Biden to drop all of the weird stuff. To drop all of the weird means testing. Maybe not all of it, because Joe Biden does have other forces acting on him, because people do not have power in America. But there's ground you can cover by fighting. So the best way to support Joe Biden, instead of insisting vote blue no matter who, is to see what people care about. Ask them what they want in a president, and then you can work together with that person to get that out of your president. For example, someone says they're not going to vote for Joe Biden because he doesn't support Medicare for all. You can say, okay, would you support him? Are there any other issues that you would like Joe Biden, that you think he's strong on, that you want to go for it? And you can negotiate, maybe, with the person that if you fight for the policy they want out of that candidate, then they would vote for them. You would say, let's both write Joe Biden a letter. We can't protest anymore, can we? Maybe? Let's go to one of those car protests and put up a bunch of signs? Let's call the DNC. Let's send faxes. You can negotiate with people for the things they want, for the policies they want. If what you care about is getting Donald Trump out, then what you should care about is to dealing with people's policy needs. It might feel good and superior. It might feel like you have a better position and are smarter than a person if you say that you are voting blue no matter who, but that only boosts your own ego, your own pose, your own position. And it's not real, because you don't have any more power, because the Democrats are not fighting for you to have power, as long as you go along with this narrative they have given you. Hey, Editing Raymond here. So I neglected a few points and to tie together a few loose threads. So I'm going to try to do that quick right now. Right, Emma? First, let's reiterate that choosing Joe Biden was not a voter choice. It was a DNC choice. And we know this because it's really freaking weird how it happened. Now, defenders of the move before Super Tuesday, where a lot of people endorsed Biden, would say that the Biden campaign's job was to negotiate with their campaigns and give them offers and play politics with each other, which would be fine, I guess, because Biden is empty in a way. But that is not what happened. We know that, for one, Barack Obama was involved, and thus the DNC was involved. The DNC, which is supposed to be impartial, or claims they're supposed to be impartial, or would be impartial if this was a fair system we were running in. For some people, this is a really boring accusation because they know the DNC cheats. But this is on the level of a her emails kind of thing, where leftists say one thing, and then a lot of the people in the mainstream liberal party, in the mainstream media, will doubt it because, what do you mean Hillary's campaign is working with the media for better coverage? What do you mean the campaign is working with the super PACs? No, the super PACs are separate. What do you mean the DNC chose Biden and made the other campaigns stop? This is what I mean. When Hillary Clinton's emails came out, they say her emails. They don't say what is in the emails, because even when the corruption is shown, it's covered up and made to look like it is something innocent or non-consequential or not connecting the dots from one to another. Hillary Clinton's emails were a big deal because Hillary Clinton is a corrupt politician and her tactics are corrupt, and it was shown that when her emails came out. It's something that we told you all along on the left. Hillary Clinton's corruption is not something that can be ignored. The same as Biden. DNC choosing Biden is not a fact that can be ignored or disputed or easily brushed off. That's what happened. And purposely choosing Biden means ignoring all of the people that Bernie draws in. Remember the communists? Remember the people that are not active? Remember the people in the middle and the Republicans that just want to make their lives better? That only happens with Bernie. They were only drawn together with the combination of Bernie's integrity and Bernie's workforce and Bernie's record of getting stuff done and championing these techniques that would help the everyday person. Not choosing Bernie. Choosing specifically not to have Bernie is choosing not to have those people involved in the election. Blue, no matter who, is a tactic connected to this because they want you to blame the people that they ignored. They want the blame of their loss to go to the people, the voters, and specifically the voters they did not listen to and did not want to reach out to. And those people that see nothing of quality in Biden are right. They aren't being selfish. They aren't being stuck up. They aren't being too idealistic. They aren't being plutocrats, whatever the fuck that means. I'm not looking it up. They have very clear ideas for the future and goals, and they know what will help them and what will help forward those goals. And the DNC specifically does not want those to happen. So the DNC specifically does not want their votes. Blue, no matter who, in this sense, is more of a campaign to lionize you, to brainwash you into not thinking that politics is made to change things. It is not made to convince people to vote. It's made to convince you to blame voters. You don't have any more power because the Democrats are not fighting for you to have power. As long as you go along with this narrative they have given you. And I'm stressing that point again because we're about to get to the people you absolutely will not convince. And these people are different from, say, if you try to convince a Republican to vote for it. Maybe it's the same in a way that they don't have the same ideology as you, but they don't have a Republican ideology. They just have a vastly different ideology. And that is fine. Talk to them about it. Talk about ideologies. What makes the world tick? What makes it work? You might be able to appeal to them, but you probably won't, because ideologies are a major and different thing. And this section of the video is on people you absolutely will not win, so you might as well not fight them. Joe Biden has very clear rape allegations against him. You will not convince people that do not like rape to vote for Joe Biden or for Donald Trump. You should give up. You should not argue with someone who doesn't want to vote for a rapist. They are completely and totally valid in their abstaining. You cannot faulty logic them by saying not voting for Biden is vote for Trump, because not voting for Trump could also be a vote for Biden. There's circular logic. That is not a logical reason to vote for someone. You are talking to someone who is backed up against a corner. You might be talking to someone, well, if you're talking to a woman, chances are they have experienced sexual violence and sexual harassment. They could easily see how they'd be in a position where they themselves could fall victim to such a thing. And they will not vote for a rapist. And you should not argue with them as such. And you should not post vote blue no matter who and a vote for Biden, or not voting for Biden is a vote for Trump, because you are messing with their trauma. Of course, rape isn't the worst thing Joe Biden has done. And this is something that people have known for the entire election. There are people that are strongly anti-war because we are currently not at war with anyone, but dropping bombs on multiple countries. And we dropped bombs on countries. You might hear them as drone strikes, but it is bombing. A drone strike is a bomb. We are bombing multiple countries, including countries that we are at peace with, including countries where we have soldiers and doctors, where we have not been at war with them for years, and they are allies, and we bomb them. And bombs kill civilians. And the military continually lies about how many people they kill, and how many people that they kill are combatants and civilians. Chelsea Manning went to jail because a whole unit gunned down civilians and journalists. There were no combatants. They knew there were no combatants. Chelsea Manning is a hero. She did not leak sensitive information that put people in danger. She pointed out how we were murdering people and civilians. We murdered civilians and journalists during the Trump administration, during the Obama administration, during the Bush administration, during the Clinton administration. They are all war criminals to several people. I would say a war crime, a genocide, is worse than a rape. But not like personally. It's not as personal. I think you should listen to the people that are strongly anti-war and anti-genocide and anti-war crime. They are good people. They are not to be argued with. There is no harm reduction to them. It is not harm reduction to vote for Joe Biden when Joe Biden's harm reduction is we're going to bomb less civilians, or we're going to have less people in our concentration camps. Obama started concentration camps. Trump has put more people in a concentration camp. Voting for Biden might have less people in a concentration camp, but will not get rid of a concentration camp. Bernie appealed to people who were radical because he's not a rapist. He's always been for trans rights. Even if his support was kind of without, critical support, it's not like, oh, trans, blah, blah, blah. It's more like, these people need a space. Let's give them a space. Bernie wanted to abolish ICE, which is nowhere on Joe Biden's radar. Nowhere. Bernie could be more anti-war. And to a lot of people, Bernie didn't go far enough in this way. But to most people, he did, and would be much better than Biden. And you are not going to convince these people that bombing other countries slightly less is harm reduction. These people are so completely valid. They should be listened to. They should be taken seriously. They are reasons to say, hope that Bernie Sanders gets in. Just because it's a big, complicated question of war and drone strikes doesn't mean there can't be an easy answer to it. And the people that are strongly against it know their shit. If someone's not voting for Joe Biden because he'd put people in concentration camps, because he'd bomb civilians, because he'd still let ICE go around, because Joe Biden raped a woman and is part of a pattern of him not respecting people's personal space and smelling and kissing and touching them. Those are reasons to fight. Those are reasons to support Joe Biden by voting for someone else or for making it very clear that you believe in those causes too. Those people need the people that are anti-war and anti-rapist should be venerated. They're not being delusional. They're not being wishy-washy. What else do people say? They're not being overly optimistic. They're being perfectly reasonable. The best option for those people is not voting, is not electing, is not letting these two private companies of the Democratic National Committee and the Grand Old Party, the GOP, which are private corporations. It's not in their best interest to vote for someone that a private corporation approved and selected and signaled to be a leader of their country. We don't really need a president. We don't need to have a rapist in White House. We don't need to have a single strong man in charge in case things go bad if we plan for bad things. If we put a system in place that accounts for people's needs and has an infrastructure to meet them. It's not necessary. Your city probably has a city council to make decisions. A lot of cities' mayors are just a member of the council. We could have 2 or 3 or 8 people in charge of the executive branch of our government. There's no real reason why it would be a single person. Having one person in charge of the executive branch would make about as much sense as having one person in charge of the judicial branch or the legislative branch. Why settle for one? We are not all ideal products of the system we are in. Some of us are failures. Some of us have been failed by the system so many times that we could easily see an end to the system. And that's just a point to consider, to remember, to think about how it is possible. We don't have to have a president. A lot of people would prefer it that way. It'd be much more harm reduced if there was no person to do harm. So support Joe Biden by changing him. Don't play into the DNC's excuse. Don't let the DNC play Joe Biden. Don't let the forces that play in the DNC play on Joe Biden or you. The best way to help Joe Biden is to help each other and fight for our rights and fight to expand our power in our system. Voting is just one way, one minute way to interact with the system. There are ways inside of the system, like running for office. There are ways outside of the system, like protesting, rioting, revolting. You need to make the system work for those people that are outside of it. You need to make the system work for the people, or the people will break the system.